like to call the April meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Paula, would you call the roll?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Neela Crank-Clement.
Present.
Suzanne Broadbent.
Present.
Taylor Fudge.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Klaus Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Linda Schultz.
Present.
And Zachary.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to go over the process for the meeting that's on the back of the front page of the agenda packet. Second paragraph, the chairman will announce each case and ask interested parties to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will discuss details of the case, calling on staff for details. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of parties present. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between the applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. And 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. Contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. And finally, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the BOA. Okay, with that, let's go on to item 2. Katie?
Nothing to add other than what's in your agenda, so making final plans with everybody that's going to attend the Historic Preservation Conference coming up the end of this month.
Okay, great. Okay, on to the minutes. Any comments on the minutes? Or a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted. On to the code enforcement report. Anybody from the city here? Or anybody like to comment? Katie?
Nothing specific to report. As we always explain, if you see a number listed in the column under citation number, that's going to mean that it has progressed from a notice of violation to an actual citation. You can get more information about any of those or any of the violations listed here from our staff or from the city's Action Center.
Okay, thank you. Continuance announcements and requests.
We have one request for continuance to the May 1st meeting and need a vote on that item.
Okay. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I move to continue HPCAA 19-00015 to the May, what did you say, 1st meeting.
What number is that on our agenda, please?
It is VA1, 5A1.
1.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Did you second, Klaus? Yes. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. So now, new requests. Looks like there's none.
Commissioner Brown, I would like to make a motion that we move item 7A, entering into executive session, to now.
Okay. Is there a second? on that.
Before we do that, we were discussing, maybe it would be appropriate to get the consent docket items
Okay.
done
They
before
can
we
leave,
move that other
yeah.
item up.
That's a good idea, yeah.
So I rescind that motion.
Okay,
So
thank
we
you.
have nothing under dilapidated structures and nothing under National Register nominations.
Okay.
6 items listed on the consent docket.
Did Linda have a comment on one of those, or? Like to pull one, Linda?
Number 6,
Okay. So item 6 is,
HPCA 19-00041.
okay,
And we don't have to take a motion to pull that. We can pull that and approve the remaining items on the
Okay.
consent docket.
okay. All right, so that's been pulled. The rest of the items, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent docket?
I'll make a motion to approve consent docket items 1 through 5.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent docket is approved, and move that up, because if you've been approved, you can leave, because you don't need to stick around. So appreciate you coming. Now,
Okay, so now I would like to make a motion that we move agenda item 7A, entering into executive session, up.
okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, it's been approved, and... What's that?
Need a motion
Oh,
to go
we have
into
to,
executive
that's right, we have to move it up, and then we have to prove it. So,
I move that we go into executive session.
all right, second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded again. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're in executive session, and we will be back shortly.
Just for those of you who are feeling clueless, the commission has an executive session on the agenda so that they can discuss a particular issue, and we'll recess into separate quarters, and then we'll come back in to continue the meeting. So you can stay where you are. The commission will be back shortly.
We'll try to keep it short. Okay, we've returned from executive session. First thing I'd like to do is see how many people here are present for item 7B. Could you raise your hand? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we move item 7B up on the agenda to be heard now.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Katie, let's go to item 7B.
First Christian Church at 3700 North Walker Avenue, consideration and possible action to initiate a proposal for designation of the First Christian Church as historic landmark, HL overlay, and to adopt the resolution.
All right. So, how do we approach this? There's no applicant. Property owner? Okay. A representative of the property owner.
Yes, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of not the applicant, but the property owner.
Right.
What we are asking you to do today is to defer this item for 1 month to allow us to try to work out a deal with the City Council to enable us to enter into an agreement that would be binding on the parties being the church and the City of Oklahoma City, by which the church would agree that they would not seek any demolition permits over a period of 180 days, and the city, in exchange, would agree to not initiate an HL case. And so what we're asking you to do is to defer this item for a month. There will be corresponding items on the City Council docket next week, on the Tuesday the 9th, in which they will take up this matter. It's anticipated at that time that the City Council, we hope, would agree to kind of the terms that we've laid out, that no demolition could happen, and therefore the status quo is maintained, and presumably get what the goal would be here. So we're asking you to defer this for a month to allow us to go to City Council next Tuesday.
Katie, could you explain the process a little bit, how this would work?
Just in general?
Yeah, what we're considering today.
Sure. So
and
what we are
Mr. Box's.
considering today is step one in a multi-step process whereby either the property owner or the City Council, the Planning Commission, or the Historic Preservation Commission can initiate the process to designate a property as a historic landmark. The way that this process would normally go is that we would initiate this today. It would return to the Commission within 90 days for consideration, and the Commission would then make a recommendation to Planning Commission. It would then go on from Planning Commission to City Council, just like any other type of rezoning. So that's obviously a change from what's being proposed by the property owner, but that's how our process normally occurs.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Became complicated. Comment?
Yeah. Mr. Box, you're welcome to sit down if you're finished. Are there other people to speak on this
Sure,
item before we consider?
Right. Just for purposes of what we're doing, if the HP Commission is not willing to take that deferral, I do want the right to come back up here and voice our opposition to this process.
Oh, sure, yeah. So is there anybody who'd like to speak at this point? For or against? Okay. Don't be shy.
You're tall. I'm Lynn Rostischel, member of the Okie Mod Squad, and I feel like this is something that has kind of been in the public forefront now for a few months. I don't know why we would need to delay it. I don't think that initiating the process, obviously nothing's going to happen today as far as any decisions, so I suggest that we go ahead and move forward with that.
Okay, thank you for signing in. Anybody else?
Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Montgomery with the Preservation and Design Studio, and I am here today in the interest of preserving the building, of course. I don't have any objection to the item being continued for 30 days, but I also wanted to say that I am volunteering 5 to 10 hours of my Preservation and Design Studios time to meet with the owners and maybe help them come up with some other ideas about how this kind of zoning would actually be favorable. One project that we did work on was the Calvary Baptist Church, and as you know, that is zoned, has the historic preservation overlay on it, and it was a successful preservation tax credit project. So there are some options available for commercial uses and preservation tax credits. So that offer is on the table for the owners, and all they need to do is call the studio.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment?
I think we saw more hands raised whenever we asked who was here for this item,
know
so don't be
you're
scared.
here. No pressure.
Do I need, okay. My name is Kayla Lewis, and I'm the Executive Director for Preservation Oklahoma, statewide nonprofit that also has a focus on Oklahoma City, of course, because that's in our state. We wrote a letter of support to City Council prior to the last council meeting, and I know that it had been deferred then. I think the biggest thing that we would want this to be locally designated as a historic landmark would be for the fact that we have so few in our state, and as we're growing in just kind of that representation, I think us not having it listed locally, we had the same example of First Christian, or Founders National Bank, where it had no designation, and essentially it was demolished as soon as they got the permit. So something like this gives that extra level of support and process, and just deferring it kind of seems unnecessary, I guess is what I would say. And if it's just a step in the process, then we should continue with this process, and then knowing that we're still fighting the fight through City Council, Planning Commission, and that kind of thing. I think this is something that the historic preservation staff should consider, as it is historic property, was listed in the National Register, and has a lot of qualifications for that local designation. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Ken Fitzsimmons, 1228 Northwest 36th. And I would like to support the designation. One thing I was curious about, and I don't understand the process exactly, is it possible to designate just the church, the building? That's, I think, the main crux of what everybody wants to see saved, not necessarily the entire property. Is that something that's considered in this?
Yes, well, it's not in the current documents, but
Yeah.
the designation, the boundaries of the overlay can be crafted however the council sees fit, or however the commission recommends. So we noticed for the entire property, because it is all one site, and the entire property is listed on the National Register of Historic Places currently, but it is possible to do just the church building at the corner that's the most prominent piece of the site.
Okay, that was the main thing I wanted to see if that would, I don't know if that would help you guys or not, but it just seems like maybe that's kind of a win-win, that the building is what everybody wants to see. It's not so much, I think, the entire property. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Come on. Okay. Any commissioners like to speak to this?
Well, I'm in favor of the deferral. I think anytime we can have voluntary action, people sitting down and working together, we are much more likely to come out with a good result and one that everyone can live with. And I think there are issues in this case that aren't clear-cut and need to be worked out, if we can, on a voluntary basis. And I don't see a downside to deferring it. We can always come back and consider a resolution like this if things don't work out. And frankly, I'm glad to know the parties are willing to talk.
Okay.
And I'll make that motion when at the appropriate time.
Okay.
So can staff or our city attorney explain how that would work if we make if we start the process today, And then this MOA goes through, is that what it is? What happens there with our process?
So if you were to initiate today and not defer it, then the council still would have on their agenda for Tuesday's consideration the memorandum of agreement. And if they were to approve that, then they would also need to suspend the action here. So then the application would not be coming back to the Historic Preservation Commission for 90 days as required by the ordinance. It would be suspended. And then at the end of that process, then there would be the potential to resume the designation.
Okay, thank you.
How does a deferral work? We just, like continuing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
If the commission defers today and council hears it on the 9th and council decides they don't want to do anything, then we hear it again on May 1st. What happens between April 9th and May 1st? If council doesn't approve the resolution to initiate, council doesn't want to do council just says we have no interest in doing anything whatsoever.
And if the commission today defers this, then the commission can bring this issue back up and vote it up or down and decide whether or not to initiate the proposal then, on May 1st.
Would we go ahead and, if we're deferring today, we would assume that it's going to be on our agenda May 1st unless something else occurs?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't know if I understand that. So is there a gap in there? That's what I'm trying to, if the council doesn't take action and there's no MOU, is there a gap before we meet that it's kind of open?
If council were to choose not to do anything on Tuesday, then there would not be any action taken regarding the property until it would be back up on the Historic Preservation Commission's agenda for May 1st.
Okay.
If we did this continuance of sorts, they could negate that? I'm confused. And make some other decision?
If council doesn't, it's still entirely up to council whether or not they approve a memorandum of agreement on Tuesday or what course they choose to pursue. But there's the potential, of course, that they don't approve the memorandum of agreement on Tuesday, and then there's no action taken by the city until this comes back up on the Historic Preservation Commission's agenda on May 1st.
Okay.
So what I think is the commission is here to protect our historic resources. The city of our size has a laughingly small amount of historic landmarks and buildings on the National Register, and we keep losing them. So I'm the one that asked that this be on the agenda today, that we consider initiating a proposal for designation of the church as a landmark, and I would like that protection. So that going forward, we start that 180-day process starting today. And it would be great during that time if they can work out something with the city council. But I think we need to move forward with this.
We're not really deciding anything. We're just starting the process.
Right.
So.
We're not designating anything. We're just asking staff to prepare a report, which they do whenever we initiate the process, to consider whether or not it is something that we want to salvage. And I mean, it's already on the National Register. It's been on the register for 8 years.
And I too hope that something can be worked out, but the commission has certain duties that we're charged with, and one of them is recommending designations and all that sort of thing, and for us to continue it when we're not really deciding anything, we're just starting the process. There would be several more steps before anything happens. I don't see a problem with that personally. It seems like it could offer a little more protection in the short term.
Maybe it would be helpful for the property owner's representative to talk a little bit more about that, if that deferral and particularly that gap between council and our next meeting. Your understanding of what happens in that gap.
Well, there's not a gap. The council will take action Tuesday. They either take action in the affirmative for the MOU, and if they do, then there's essentially a stay in place. If they don't, then you'll hear it at your next meeting. There's no gap.
There's a gap between today and Tuesday. Maybe that's what you're... talking
Yeah.
about?
After
Well,
the-
I'm saying if on April 9th, council says, we're not going to do the MOU, we're not going to initiate the rezoning, we're going to do nothing, and as of April 9th, there are no restrictions on the property, it wouldn't come back to the HP Commission for reconsideration until May 1st.
Correct.
So that's several weeks that there's no, the protections that would be in place with the
Sure.
MOU would not be there. So I guess that's what I'm
That's the
asking.
gap.
The same lack of protections that have not been in place for 50 years, I guess is what you're saying. So yes, they'll have the same status as they've had for 50 years. Correct.
Mr. Box? The only impact, if we approve the initiation of this process today, to the owner of the property then would be that should the council decide to do nothing, then there would still be a stay on the destruction of that.
As I
I'm
understand,
trying to, it doesn't seem like it's that much difference.
So there's perhaps far greater implications than just the stay. If you take a vote today in the affirmative, it triggers several legal things that will occur on this property that otherwise don't exist, several property rights that they currently have right now that they won't have if you vote a certain way. So it triggers the need for them to make different decisions.
as I understand it, Katie, during the 180 days, if something comes up, they want to make change or whatever, they come to the commission
Yes. What
for a CA?
the ordinance says is that for 180 days, or whenever it completes the rezoning process, whichever comes first, no permits can be issued unless they go ahead and get a certificate of appropriateness as if they were already a historic landmark.
And just to be clear, there is still the item on for council's consideration to initiate the proposal of the corner involving just the church and the Jewel Box Theater.
If we did move forward with the 180-day proposal that Neil is speaking about, would Catherine Montgomery still have an opportunity in 30 days or however many days to visit with the church about the possible retrofit of that building to a suitable use that could be financially viable for everyone? Is that possible?
That's just entirely up to the property owner and Catherine to decide if they want to pursue that.
My client is interested in selling the property. It's been for sale for 3 years, and so I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to Ms. Montgomery, but I'm not sure to what end that's going to serve. They're trying to sell the property. So
That might be more useful to a prospective buyer.
Right.
To determine tax credit opportunities and that sort of thing.
Mr. Box, did you have a chance to ever see the church, Calvary Baptist Church retrofit that was done?
I have not, no.
I was fortunate to be at the opening night of that wonderful event, a fabulous retrofit. The only thing missing was a gospel choir. Put my complaint in about that, but it was magnificent. I think it would be difficult for this, but I like the idea of exploring every option for all parties. I think would be, in a historic preservation sense, would be my opinion about that, just to see what could be done if it's possible.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item before we move forward? No?
Any more commissioners?
Any other comments? Okay. Because this is on the National Register, it is a historic resource, I would like to move to initiate a proposal for designation.
I think
Of
Mr.
the-
Box wanted to make a final statement. Is that right?
Well, if we're not going to defer it and we're going to hash this out, then yes, I want the right. I thought there was going to be a motion on it, but if not, and we're going to move forward, then I would like to put my people on and have that argument. So is it that we are not going to defer the item?
I am making a motion to initiate the process.
Suzanne had said she wanted to make a motion to defer, so I don't
Okay,
think we
well-
need to.
We can do that first and see how it goes.
Well, I will move to defer it for 1 month at the respondent's request. I'm not sure what to call them, but
Is
anyway,
it like
property
a
owner's request.
continuance, like a continuance, our usual language, for 1 month, till the May first meeting. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of continuing?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay?
Nay.
I think it's a show of hands. All in favor?
No.
All in favor of continuance?
Suzanne?
We're doing a show of hands. So 2. All opposed? Okay.
If we agree to state on the record that we won't seek any demolition permit between now and the 9th, does that change the discussion of?
It wouldn't change my motion, no.
Could be between maybe now and May 1st.
No, I'm ready to start the process.
All right, so that motion's been defeated.
Amanda Carpenter with the Deputy Municipal Counselor with the City Attorney's Office. I believe what Mr. Box was supposed to be asking is whether or not it would change this body's motion for the deferment if the church agreed not to seek a demo permit between now and May, when this item would be reheard by the HP Commission if it was deferred for 1 month.
That's different from what he said, yeah.
Right.
Right, so that would be different, so there would be no gap.
So staff's view on that would be that that is buying yet another month to have the building protected and also have time for all of the various parties to work toward a solution. That seems...
So
in
they're
keeping
going
with
to
our
agree in what way? In a document that's, I mean, what is that?
They're
What
agreeing
protection
on the
does that
record at
afford?
this meeting. I haven't heard them say it yet, but if they agree on the record at this meeting that they will not apply for a demolition permit between now and your next HP Commission meeting, then it would stay them from taking any action on that, and you all would still have the opportunity to consider it in May.
So if they were to go to Building Services and apply for a permit, Building Services would know that there was this meeting and they agreed not to do it.
Right, we can notify them of that.
Well, that sounds fair.
Things fall through the cracks all the time, though.
I know. And then once it's gone, it's gone.
I know.
So that sounds fair. Do you want to do another motion, Suzanne, since you made the...
We agree we won't seek a demolition permit before the May meeting.
Okay, that's been recorded. Suzanne, you want to do that?
Well, I'll move reconsideration of my motion to continue the, this item to the May 3rd meeting.
With the understanding?
With the understanding that there will be no application for demolition permit
Before that meeting?
before that meeting.
Okay, sorry, I'm giving you words. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, show of hands. All in favor of that one? How many is that?
4.
4? Okay, all opposed? It looks like the nays have it. So it's been defeated. All right.
What was the vote, please? What was the vote? I didn't see.
4 to continue it.
5.
4 to continue it, 5 to
Not.
nay on that one.
To pose, yeah.
Okay. Okay, then I would like to make a motion to...
Would you like to say one more thing first?
I'd like to put my case on. I mean,
Oh, yes, right, you said you wanted to be able to get...
So I'd like to start by having the Reverend come up and give his thoughts on this and why this is such an important issue to the church, and then I'll follow him.
Get confusing. Hello.
I'm Reverend John Malgott, pastor at First Christian Church of Oklahoma City.
Welcome.
We have no desire for the building to be torn down. We would like to find a buyer that will want to keep the building. We're trying to sell the building because we have a sanctuary that seats 2,000 and we worship about 60. And so we would like to find a space that more suits our needs for right now. However, putting this designation on the building might keep us from being able to sell it to someone who wants to keep the building if they want to be able to do things to the structure in order to make it for what they need it to be done. And I'm afraid if they can't change anything to the structure without having to come here over and over and over to get permission, we might have a problem getting a buyer to come forward. We've spoken with some people who are interested. We don't have any type of contract in place, but there are people who are interested, but they're kind of waiting to find out how all this is going to play out. So I don't want this designation because I want to be able to have the new buyers, the new owners, do what they want to do with the building so that it can move forward and not just be like the Gold Dome and boarded up and sitting there. Thank you.
Good.
To me, this is about property rights, okay? What this commission does is a very important tool. I live in an HP neighborhood myself, so I certainly appreciate what it is you do. But, you know, I got to make the decision when my wife and I were buying a house. I got to weigh the pros and the cons about buying a house that's zoned HP. What this commission is seeking to do is to strip that decision away from a property owner that has owned this property in excess of 50 years. They're seeking to impose their will, and I think that's wrong. I think that the property owner has been able to enjoy certain rights for a long time and should be able to do that going forward. This property has been for sale for 3 years or more. So in all that time, buyers haven't come forward. And so all you're going to do by initiating this action is reduce the pool of potential buyers. You're going to start finding opportunistic buyers who are going to think that the church is in a bad position and need to come and lowball. This is not right. This is an overreach, in my opinion. The fact that we're trying to designate the entire site now is astonishing to me. I don't know what is historic about the crumbling parking lot. You know, this is even further than Councilman Ed Shadid's resolution sought. So we would ask that you not approve this and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Again, we're just starting a process to eventually maybe recommend to City Council. This is not a decision, so...
It's not just starting a process.
That's our duty, the way we see it.
There are legal triggers that will happen the moment you cast this vote. It's not just starting a process to talk about it. I mean, it comes with real legal implications the moment you take this vote.
What would those be, in your opinion?
There's an automatic stay in place for 180 days.
Right.
So you are depriving them of property right that they currently have right now.
Okay.
To clarify, the stay that would be in place if the initiation were to be started today is that they would need to come before the Historic Preservation Commission for any exterior modifications, which would be of great enough magnitude to require a certificate of appropriateness.
Sure.
So it's not a blanket.
It's imposing burdens that are otherwise not there today.
Understand. Lynn, you have something else?
Thank you. I would say that any potential buyer knows that this property is historic and treasured by the city. They also know that it's on the National Register. And, you know, this has been on the register since 2011. That's no big surprise. I would also say that this complex has been for sale for 3 years, and no landmarking discussions in the last couple months has not enabled a sale to go through the last 3 years. In fact, I think it's probably brought some interested people to the forefront since we started this. I do agree with Ken Fitzsimmons in that, you know, I personally feel like this would have a much better chance of passing if it was just limited to the church and not the entire 32 acres. I feel like that would be, you know, really important to focus on the church and not the rest of it. So that's all. Thanks.
No, and I expect when staff does their report, they're going to kind of pull things out and say, okay, if the parking lot is on there, maybe that is not something we should save.
Well, I think anytime we look at a historic property, we weigh things that are contributing to the historic character of that property or site and things that are not contributing to the historic character of that property site. I mean, every meeting, this commission makes decisions, and every week, staff makes decisions on approvals about things that qualify as ordinary maintenance and repair, things that qualify as a non-historic item or feature. So certainly there's different levels of review for something like a surface parking lot versus a historic structure. I do think, as we stated earlier, the commission and city council have the ability to pull in the boundaries of a historic landmark district and limit it to just the church if that was what people saw as the most appropriate path forward.
At this time, we could do that. Okay? Any comments on the left side?
You know, on the seller side, when I talk with owners and
Yeah,
sellers, and we
good
talk about
perspective, yeah.
comparative market analysis and how much it's worth, and sellers usually think it's worth a little bit more than it probably is. I understand that. I sold my house a couple years ago. But what the determining factor is the market. What would the market do with this? And there's part of me that agrees with the church that if the market decides that they want to save that, maybe it should be. We're all preservationists. That's why we spend countless hours every year working on this. But I'm looking at the practical side, and I agree with the pastor about the Gold Dome. I think it was very disappointing what did not happen with that property. Retrofits never worked. They painted it a hideous color. I'm disappointed about that, and I'm fearful that what may not be able to happen for the church in the future. And I think the market should be the deciding factor. My opinion. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
So do we have the motion on the table?
I think,
I started to make one.
Oh,
I think
well, I have
Neela-
a comment, but I just want to...
yeah, Neela waited until
Yeah, go ahead.
folks could talk. Do you have something else? Suzanne?
No, I agree with Suzanne in that I think any time you can work together to come up with a solution, that's the ideal scenario. I voted against the first continuance because I was afraid of that gap and what may happen there. With the assurances, I thought that gave us some extra time. Frankly, I think I'm okay with recommending us to review this project because it hasn't sold for 3 years. Another 180 days for us to take proper consideration, I think, is fair for everyone. I think the buildings due at least 180 days to consider what may or may not be worth keeping historically.
So you're in favor of starting the process?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Has Mr. Boggs put on his case? I mean, where are we?
Are you, anybody else you'd like to have talk? Okay. So we're ready for the next motion.
I mean, I think most of us, all of us would agree that what we care about is the church and the Jewel Box Theater. I mean, I don't know parking lots or whatever, but I do feel confident that staff is going to pull together a report to let us know what should be considered or designated as a historic landmark. So I would like to move to initiate a proposal for designation of the First Christian Church as a historic landmark, directing staff to prepare a report addressing the designation criteria and other considerations, and to adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
Okay. That's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
second.
Okay.
I'll second as well.
Over here. All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, can I comment?
Sure. Comment.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Well, I didn't want to. But I would appreciate your indulgence for a few minutes because this is a pretty painful vote for me. I love this building. I live just down the street from it. I probably see it more every day than anybody else in this room. I love turning down 36th and 37th Street when I'm on my evening walks with my dog and seeing the dome and the bell tower. It's very much a part of my sense of place. I attended the Jewel Box Theater just last Saturday night to see a play written by a Putnam Heights native, so the whole thing had a lot of meaning for me Saturday night, particularly as I sat in that building. The building was intended by its designers and its creators, the First Christian Church, to be a big part of the cityscape of Oklahoma City, and indeed it has become that. It's very much a part of our sense of space and a part of our environment. Clearly it's historic. I'm not going to argue with the experts on that. It's on the National Registry. And the owner has shared it with us for the last 60 years in many ways that have created a real strong attachment to the building. And I hate the thought that it might be torn down. I'll miss it every day if that would happen. But
There's a but.
except for the people of First Christian who are represented by their Board of Trustees who have a fiduciary duty to do the best that they can by their members, which means in this case getting the most money I think that they can for this and letting the market speak. Neither I nor anybody in this room, as far as I know, has contributed to this church or owns it or has contributed to its upkeep. And I don't hear any offers to do so now. I understand that many of my fellow commission members think that part of our protecting historic assets, and you may be right, and I suspect I'm going to be a lonely vote here, but I do think there are serious issues and that this quite possibly may be an unconstitutional taking. And even if it were to withstand constitutional scrutiny, I'm not sure that it's the right thing to do for the property owner or for historic preservation. The process has been described as buying time, but the problem is we're not buying anything. We're not paying for it. It's hard to quantify what this kind of action hanging over this property might mean to a potential buyer. And that's what I think the Reverend was speaking to and what Mr. Box was speaking to. And so we're not even offering to pay for it, much less trying to figure out what that's about. And I just can't get past the owner's property rights and how we would be interfering with those. I wish I could. I have tried really hard to. But I'm a lawyer, and I have read some cases, and this is the way I think, and maybe it's not an unreasonable burden, but I can't get there. And I'm well aware that the ordinance itself allows us to get this far, but that doesn't mean that the ordinance would withstand constitutional scrutiny. It's really never been tried. And folks, I've been on the front lines on this historic preservation business for 26 years. The most recent was when we appeared before the City Council to try to get our Airbnb in place. And I can tell you that we were met with, at best, a lack of understanding and at worst, a hostility to trying to protect our HP neighborhoods. Met with criticism of elitism, all those sorts of things that people are wanting to throw at us. So we're not as far along as we think we are, perhaps, in the public support of historic preservation. And if we lose that, we will indeed go back a few steps. And putting this kind of thing in place that does interfere with property owners' rights over the property owners' objections is going to be seen as pretty threatening by some people about the HP process. And that's why I think it's not good for us. The other thing is, I was here for the last debacle when HP was nearly lost. And that was a fight that came before the City Council and with a disgruntled owner. We nearly lost the whole historic preservation ordinance. The commission was disbanded. It was reconstituted. So these things are taken pretty seriously, and I lived through that, and I know what it's like, and it can happen. This is, as I said, a very painful vote for me, and I know that many of my friends in HP are going to be very disappointed and possibly unforgiving, but let me be a little bit more optimistic here. I'm glad we have a process by which we can have the conversation that brought us here today, and I do think that's within the HP Commission's purview, and that it will perhaps stimulate voluntary action that will save this church building. There is enough money, energy, and creativity in the historic preservation community and among the people who care about this building that it can be saved if we work together. A developer actually would probably be glad to be shed of it and get to deal with the whole other 30 acres that would be left. So, you know, there are all sorts of things that come up. If it really means this much to the city through the historic preservation, let's let the city think about how they can pay for it. They probably can. Generally, we can come up with an idea when we want to. I have my own vision of what would be great at that location. But my vision, using other people's property and money, is not a vision, it's a delusion. So I'm glad for the opportunity for this discussion, but I believe this is as far as the involuntary conversation can go. I'll be voting no, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, now I have to speak.
Yes, your turn.
I have to say that unfortunately, I don't think that it is that this today and where we all are today and why it's in the paper is because of one building. I think it's been an accumulation of a series of things that have happened, and I think that that is why people become more concerned over time. It's not just this building. I think more people are interested in historic preservation than ever before, and they're certainly benefiting by preservation because all you have to do is see the home values in historic districts compared to across the street from any one of them. You would definitely, see a difference there. I'm not a lawyer, but I have been involved in preservation for almost too long, over 40 years. And I do know there is case law, and it has gone to the Supreme Court, and it is lawful for cities to designate buildings as culturally important to their city. So I do not think that, even though it may not happen here or whatever, but it is proven, and that's why there are those landmarks in cities all over the United States. So I'm not an attorney, but I've been in many, I've heard many, the history of it, and know that that is true. So I do know there is case law, or we wouldn't have the ordinance that we have today. It's all based on that, and that's why we get to do the things we do. I think sitting on the Historic Preservation Commission is an honor, and then attached to that honor is a duty, and I feel like that I would have to vote for it because I feel like it's my duty as an interested historic preservation person, as a citizen of the city of Oklahoma City, and a person sitting here, I would just have to vote for it.
Okay. Anybody else?
It would be my, go ahead.
I'm kind of in the same boat, too. I feel like this Historic Preservation Commission has a duty to protect architecturally significant buildings that have a unique history and significance. And this church, to me, has all of those items. It's unique, it's interesting, it has architectural significance, it's on the historic registry, and for all those reasons, I think I would be in favor. And I also don't want to kick the can down the road another 30 days, so I think I would be in favor of voting to initiate the proposal.
Okay, thank you. George?
It's my hope that, Reverend, you could meet with Catherine Montgomery and go see the Calvary Baptist Church, the magnificent retrofit of what that unique structure became, and that they could outline to you in the marketing of it, no matter what happens here today, that a future buyer may want to say, this could be a very viable opportunity, and you deserve to find out what someone of her talents could come up with and let the market decide about this property. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Could be a selling point. Could be a selling point. I think one of the things that's kind of raised the urgency of this, maybe why it's gotten the reaction, a lot of publicity, is what happened to Founders Bank. Demolition permit and demolished the next day. So whether or not that would happen, I doubt it, but I think that's part of the equation here. It's getting in everybody's mind. So, anybody else want to speak to this?
One other thing, too, I guess I would also be, I don't know if I'm showing my cards or what, but I would also be in favor of limiting the scope with which we're going to designate historic significance. So I wouldn't designate the parking lots, for instance. I would probably shrink that up a little bit if we can make that recommendation.
I think the council considered the C3 property on the corner. Is that right?
And an additional part north to encompass all of the Jewel Box
Jewel
Theater.
Box, okay. So we could change that at this time. We'll wait for the staff report.
Yeah, I would suggest we wait for the staff report.
Okay.
I would agree.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay, so my motion stands. I already made a motion.
You did make the motion. Mm-hmm. Was there a second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would somebody like to second that? Okay. Yes, you did. You did, too. Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Okay, we're going to have to show of hands again. All in favor of the process? Is that, looks like it's a majority. All opposed? 2. Okay. All right, the item has been approved. Thank you. On to our normal meeting.
Okay, we held item 6 from the consent docket cases, C6, so we'll hear that now at the top of the items for individual consideration.
Okay.
HPCA 19-00041 at 530 Northwest 16th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Mark Johnson for certificate of appropriateness to 1 construct accessory structure elective.
Okay, is the applicant present? There he is. Okay.
Just a little background, I suppose. This is kind of an unusual house in the neighborhood that's built at a different era. The commission had previously approved the installation of the fence. They also have administrative approval for several other items that have happened recently at the property. This is a freestanding accessory kind of shade structure in approximately the location where many of our houses of an earlier era would have a detached garage, but this house has an attached garage because it was built in the 1950s.
Okay. Could you state your name, please?
Pardon me?
Could you state your name, please?
Mark Johnson, 530 Northwest 16th.
Okay, great, thank you. And sign in. All right, I think...
Yeah, the reason that I asked that it be pulled was that when I went back to look at the previous approval for your fence, it was a 6-foot fence, and the staff report says now that in fact what got built was an 8-foot fence. So I was trying to get some clarity around the fence on the street, the height of that fence, because the staff report also says that that's a very tall structure. The pergola is a very tall structure, so the height of the fence is a 2-foot swing between 6 foot and 8 foot in the height of your pergola on a corner lot. I mean, all of that is important. So, is it an 8-foot fence?
Yes.
And did you get approval for a 6-foot fence?
That was at 8 foot when we bought it.
So you didn't build that fence?
There was an 8-foot fence there when we bought the house.
The fence along the west side of the property, the louvered fence that faces the street, there was a CA for that in 2017.
Yeah, this fence this gate that you're seeing here in the picture was what we applied for last year.
And that is 6 feet tall?
And that's the 6-foot tall fence. And you can see the 8-foot tall fence, the stockade fence behind it.
Okay, so the fence at the rear of the property is 8 feet tall that you can see in the back that's a lighter color, and then the fence along the side is 6 feet tall.
Right.
So I think
Between
there
me and
might
my
have been some
neighbors, it's an
confusion
8-foot
about that.
fence.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
The fence between our property and the neighbors to the south and the east, that's an 8-foot stockade fence.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? You pulled it for that reason, so, okay.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion unless someone else has
Any comments?
any comments?
Is there a motion?
Well, I do think that the pergola is too high. I mean, I think
Okay.
I think the pergola is too high for a corner lot. It's already got, pretty much fence, and then
The top of it would, in that one picture
Top of
where the
it's
arrow
gonna-
is,
be over quite a bit.
it's probably about at the bottom of that arrow. That fence there is 8 foot, and the top of the pergola would be 14 and a half foot. but it sets back, so the perspective from the street would not, it would look like it was lower. I had in my packet what I thought the perspective would look like.
The eave line of the pergola is 8 feet, the same as the fence, so, yeah, there it is. I don't even think you'd see as much as you have on your perspective. The eave line is 8 feet, the same as the fence, correct?
The back fence,
The back fence. The front fence is how tall?
which is the public
6, okay.
view.
The front fence is 6?
The back fence is really not a public view issue.
I'm saying the front fence is 6?
Yes.
The fence we're looking at is 6.
6, okay. Sorry.
Although it's no taller than, a garage would be, a detached garage or an accessory. I mean, it's 8-foot tall posts, which I would assume like an 8-foot tall wall maybe for a garage, and then.
Yeah, it would be about the same height as the garage, but set back another 20 foot, so perspective would be a little different.
Yeah, I still don't think you'd see that much of it.
Right, I think it's pretty reasonably sized, honestly, or at least the height.
Okay.
I do have one question. What is the intended use of this? Is it for vehicles to park under? Is it for people to hang out underneath? And
It's a cabana for the pool, so it's shade for the pool.
Okay.
Have furniture underneath it.
That helps me out. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion on this? Or any more questions? And would like to make a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00041, constructing the accessory structure with the specific findings from the staff report.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, Linda. All right, we've been approved. Thank you.
Okay. D, cases for individual consideration. Number 1, I'm sorry?
I was just going to ask a question, or actually just point something out that's come up. Shannon Rundle, Heritage Hills, 431 Northwest 20th. And this has come up because property is in Mesta Park. What Mesta Park said is fine. But we have had a couple of cases in our neighborhood at Heritage Hills where we believe, as a Preservation Review Committee, they are being allowed to be too tall. And 16 feet is twice as tall as the fence behind this one.
We're talking about the pergola? That's the last case? Okay.
I'm talking about the pergola on this case. That fence at the back is 8 feet tall, 16 feet is twice as tall as that. Now, that seems too tall for an auxiliary structure. And I think that there was a case approved, and I believe our Preservation Review Committee did catch it, and I don't think you all caught it. It's 18 feet tall, and it's just a structure in the backyard. And I don't understand exactly why these kind of structures need to be so tall. If it's really for protection from sun, the lower it is, the more it shades the area.
This one has an 8-foot eave line, which is pretty standard. 8-foot eave line, and the total height is indicated as 14 foot 8 inches, not 16.
I'm sorry, it has what?
The drawings indicate an 8-foot eave line, which is kind of standard to be able to walk under it, and the overall height is 14 foot 8 inches.
Oh, okay. I thought he said it was 16 feet tall.
That's the distance between posts.
Between posts, yeah.
Okay. But anyway, I would just recommend that maybe you all try to get together and think about the height that these auxiliary structures should be.
You can bring it up in a workshop sometime.
And because I think that we're going to have more and more of these, and, they're looming. Some, if they're on corner lots, this one won't be looming, I don't think. But there are some that are so close to the street and so high above the fence that it's about all you see. I mean, it's taller than the garage on one of these cases. So I just think that would be a good suggestion to look at height in relationship, because these are pretty tall.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Don't we have?
I don't think we have a...
Don't the standards already have guidance on heights on auxiliary buildings?
So we have guidelines for height of various landscape elements like pergolas. It doesn't have a standard set height limit for accessory buildings. We are seeing a lot more of these kind of outdoor living landscape structures that, our accessory structure guidelines are really aimed at tool sheds and that sort of thing, not so much at all of these pool cabanas and other kinds of outdoor living room structures that we're seeing more and more frequently. So I think there is some room to look carefully at how we're evaluating those.
Yeah, because if this were, say, an enclosed structure back there, and wants to keep it from being enclosed in the future, or any of these pergolas, I mean, I think that the neighborhood, our neighborhood anyway, would appreciate is kind of getting some guidelines on that.
Yeah. Of course, they'd have to come back to us if they were going to enclose it. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, next.
Okay. HPCA 18-00158 has been withdrawn.
Okay.
That applicant will likely come back and reapply at a future date with some changes to that proposal.
Okay.
Number 2, HPCA 18-00202 at 111 Northwest 15th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Bo Schlotzhauer J-Lo Properties, LLC for Jeff Johnson for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install accessory metal wall signs required.
Okay. Applicant present? Okay. If you would state your name and address.
Bo Schlotzhauer on behalf of J-Lo Properties, 1613 North Broadway Avenue.
Okay. All right. Would you like to explain a little bit about your proposal?
I was not part of the organization when the structure was rehabbed. I believe it happened in maybe 2015, 2016. At that time, it was converted from a fourplex residential property to a 2-suite commercial property. I believe that it is designated now as a commercial property and not residential. It's currently officed by an attorney and a oil and gas company. The signage is to provide, since we have more than one building on the property, the sign is to help their customers determine which building they are in, so that way when they park in the parking lot, they know not to go to the wrong building.
Okay. It sounds like you must be wanting to speak, sir.
Yeah, Randy Ice, 119 Northwest 19th, head of the Heritage Hills Design Review Committee.
Okay.
There's a statement from the committee in your packet. This is at 111 Northwest 15th. Sign was put up without a permit, and the UCD underneath this particular piece of property specifically says that properties with parking on Broadway, which this is, cannot have a sign facing the numbered streets, the east-west streets. It can only have a sign facing Broadway. We have no problem with the sign, the design of the sign, anything else, except under the UCD, it is illegal to have this sign facing 15th Street. It can only face Broadway. That ordinance was adopted in 1983. Ordinance 4300.18, Section D4 is very clear about this. All right? We have held this ordinance up ever since then, over 35 years. We have blocked every other sign facing east-west streets on all the other property. Now, much of the property on Broadway is not in the historic preservation area, but it's all in the UCD. And the signage part of the UCD is the most important part from our perspective, because it prevents all kinds of things like pole signs and such that impact the historic district. So we're very adamant about blocking signage that is prohibited by the Urban Conservation District ordinance, and we ask that the Commission uphold the law and require this sign facing 15th Street to be removed, and the sign facing Broadway can remain.
So,
okay. Thank you.
Randy had contacted me about this earlier. We didn't get this into your packets, but I did go ahead and print out that section of the ordinance that talks about the signs. It says, where a commercial use has frontage on Broadway Avenue and is on a corner lot No accessory sign shall be permitted in the side yard abutting another street. And then the next one says, where a commercial use fronting Broadway Avenue has been expanded to lots with frontage only on a local neighborhood street, no sign shall be permitted on said lots. So I took a moment to try and talk with our subdivision and zoning staff about that language, because some of it about do they or do they not have frontage on Broadway, since they're technically set in behind a pretty good-sized parking lot. Are they or are they not a corner lot? And then it says, no sign shall be permitted in the side yard abutting another street. Well, they don't have a sign in their side yard. I think there's some interpretation that kind of has to be made there, but it does sound like there's been some consistency in how they've applied that when it came to signage on the cross streets versus signage on Broadway Avenue. This is something that would also be evaluated when they go to pull a sign permit. Once they get their certificate of appropriateness, they can get a sign. They have to also get a sign permit. So that will be referenced in plan review as well. I think the commission could potentially approve with some sort of condition that particularly calls attention to that language, so that when they go to plan review for a sign permit, we make sure that that's addressed and that that's applied correctly.
But why
that's
would
just
we
one
approve
thought that I had.
something that's illegal?
What?
Well, I did not get a chance to go speak with the plan review staff that specifically reviews signs, and they may have a different take on it. When I showed this to someone in subdivision and zoning, they felt like it might not really apply in this case, since this technically isn't a corner lot. This technically doesn't have frontage directly on Broadway. This sign is on the building. It's not in the side yard. All of those little things about the way that it's written.
I understand that, but my thought is if we approve it, then that's going to determine the way that the permitting people interpret it. I mean, because we're going to have said it's okay. And I think that's going to be an important part of that for them. That's what kind of concerns me.
Aren't we reviewing it for historic preservation issues and not necessarily the sign ordinance or the...
We are. I mean, there are other city staff that are going to evaluate other codes and ordinances. We do try, especially with the UCDs, that in many places we're a precursor to HP, we try to reference those and make sure that we're at least being consistent with what the UCD allows and then what HP allows. That's why I thought it could, if you all feel like it's appropriate as per the HP guidelines, you could still include some sort of reference to that language to ensure that it's addressed.
Are you saying that the HP guidelines don't say you can just have a one on the front? Or we had another one I thought over there that we were so strict on.
Yeah.
One thing that I would like to point out is that the parking lot is associated with 1613 North Broadway Avenue. This particular piece of property has its own parking lot behind it as well. So it's not, I mean, the parking lot is not part of 111 Northwest 15th. It's part of 1613 North Broadway. So I don't know if that makes any difference. I just wanted to point that out.
I think the neighbor's position is that the business people are parking in that lot. That is your lot, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, for this business, and that lot faces Broadway.
No, it has its own parking lot.
Well, I know, but there is, you own both of them.
Yes, we do.
But the main entrance, the frontage to me, is on 16th Street, to me.
So 3.10.9 says, in general, signs must be small and limited to one per building, including those with multiple commercial tenants. Content and design of a sign for such an instance must be coordinated.
This is a second sign. There's a sign on 15th, and there's a sign on Broadway.
Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking of, that we would only be limited to one sign. That would be the sign on the front.
What do you consider the front, 16th sign?
Yeah, where the front door is.
It's on 15th. I'm sorry, I was reading the address wrong.
Oh, I mean, the front door, and then the side, I understand why you want it, but the side is really, you're saying that you don't even use that part. That parking lot is really not for that business, so.
You can only have one sign.
You can only have one sign.
which is the front. All right. We have a,
I would be favoring a motion to make, to make a motion for just the sign facing on the front facade.
So that would be a condition that we would need the applicant to agree to. They would limit it to one sign on the 15th Street elevation of the building.
I probably need to discuss that with the owner. He's the one that has negotiated with the tenants for the sign. There will probably be some additional cost to the owner to remove that sign, as well as reimburse the clients because they pay for their own panels for the sign.
Well, he didn't get a sign permit either. I don't understand why.
Well, from what I understand, when the building was rehabbed, the commission was notified, and they said that it did not fall under any kind of preservation district at that time. So when it was done, there was they just did it. You know, we didn't replace the windows or anything, but when it was rehabbed, there was no guidelines from the commission on how that was to be done. Paint, fixing of the exterior, new roof,
was there a sign
whatever
permit?
It might have been. Excuse
Was
me.
there a sign permit issued for that sign?
No, not that I'm aware of.
That was a question, I think.
Right. If you would, I think perhaps at that point they would have said you were in a historic district.
Okay.
I don't know.
So, since you have to talk to your tenants, I guess, would you like to continue this?
I would make a motion to continue to the next meeting for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd like to make a motion to continue.
Okay.
To May 3rd?
It's May 1st.
May 1st, I keep saying 3rd.
Okay.
I will say that we can, we can just leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay. I make a motion to continue HPCA 1800202 to the May 1st meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by two people. Who is George?
I'm between.
Ann.
Have dueling seconds.
Ann hasn't seconded one yet. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's been continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next.
HPCA 19-00006 at 1012 Northwest 17th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Stephen Skinner, Benchmark Homes, for certificate of appropriateness to number 4, construct garage elective. The Commission saw this application a month ago and approved several items at the property, including the demolition of a garage. The last remaining item for your review is the proposal to construct a new garage. Staff has worked with the applicant to assess the surrounding garages and their sizes, that the other garages in the general area are of a larger size. We've also done an analysis on the setbacks of the garage and how this garage would sit no farther forward and no farther back than the garages within the same block, which is one of the factors we consider when we look at garage sizes. So this was recommended for approval. There's one condition just addressing some kind of finer details of materials that we can work out with the applicant if approved.
Okay.
Steve Skinner.
Address?
1012 Northwest 17th.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Is the condition, Katie, you'll issue the CA before the conditions are met or after you get?
No, it's details and making some selections of materials, and all of those would go into the CA. So we won't issue the CA until we have all of those things defined from the applicant.
Okay.
Seems pretty straightforward to me. I can make a motion if no one has comments.
What's that?
I'll make a motion if no one has any additional comments.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00006 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report and the condition that the applicant provides the additional documentation to staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 4.
HPCA 19-00022 at 1001 Northwest 18th, Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Kathy and Jay Resnick for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace fence elective, and 2, install shed elective. And we spoke briefly the other day. I believe we cleared up that the fence would in fact meet the setback and be limited to 6 feet in height at the front and sides. I'll let the applicant confirm that. So really that qualifies for administrative approval, but the commission could approve that today. Staff wouldn't have any additional concerns on that. And then the remaining item was just the proposed shed.
That's correct. Jay Resnick, owner. And we did come to an agreement. I have conceded a 6-foot fence on the east side to follow the grade of the backyard, maintain 6 feet.
Okay.
I will just note that we do administratively approve the installation of sheds similar to this one fairly regularly. This one's a little larger than what we typically see, but not, seems to be minimally visible with its location at the back of the lot behind the garage. We just, when they're over a certain size, we bring them to the commission. But no other concerns.
Total height will be 9 feet 7 inches. That back fence you see right there is 8 foot.
The height to the peak is 9 foot 7 inches?
9 feet 7 inches.
Okay.
And will not be visible from the street alley nor 18th, only visible from the back alley parking lot. Alley's closed, but it's parking lot.
Okay. Questions?
So are we doing the fence and this?
Correct.
Yes, so I think it would be approving the fence with the conditions that it is going to be limited to 6 feet in height.
Correct.
And I'm sorry, but that's including the part where it says it's 8 feet?
That's a good point. Steps down the grade.
So it's 8 feet at the sidewalk, but 6 feet at the house.
Yes, we talked about that on stick building it, so the level of the
Right.
fence would be level all the way across. I've conceded, say, no, it will go straight with the grade, 6 feet, stick build, from the house to the setback off the street, off the sidewalk, all the way down and around.
So just to make sure, so at no point will the fence be taller than 6 feet on the front and the side, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Then why does it say 8 feet?
I think this is a change to what they initially illustrated, so we'll get that.
So it's going to step down
Yes.
at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
It will remain, as the photo depicts, that profile, only 6 feet.
Okay.
So if you go to the north, yeah, right there, as it goes down the grade, follows the grade, it will remain that, only it'll be 2 feet shorter.
Okay.
Okay, let's answer that question. All right.
I think so.
More questions or a motion?
I make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00022, items 1 and 2, with the specific finding that, or with the specific findings noted by staff and the condition that in all areas on the side and the front-facing fence will be no higher than 6 feet. Is that correct? And with the specific findings in regards to the shed and the conditions noted by the staff, which are in regard to the exterior finish. Has that been turned in, or you?
Yeah, I'm assuming, and usually when we see these structures, any metal elements on the outside have a coating so that it looks like has a painted
Yeah, they'll all
finish.
be paint coated.
Yeah, we just couldn't find it anywhere in the documentation for the shed. Yeah.
Okay, and the conditions that are attached.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Wait a minute, can I make a...
Oh, excuse me, do you want to make a comment?
So to understand about this fence thing, is the fence 6 foot tall, or can it be 10 foot tall if you have a dip in your yard?
He's saying he's going to lower his like that from the top, so it'll
It
be
will
6.
follow the grade.
Okay, but it'll always be a 6 foot.
6 foot, 6,
But not a
each
10-foot
picket will
board.
be 6
Okay,
feet.
okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, the
Yeah.
existing 8-foot fence that faces the street will be 6 feet in the future.
Correct.
Okay.
Perfect.
That answer your question, Linda? Okay. All right. Been moved and seconded, I think, right? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, been approved. Thank you. Oops.
HPCA
Is that a comment, Jen?
19-32 at 915 Northwest 22nd Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Joel Hild for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage, elective, 2, construct garage with paving at alley entrance, elective, and 3, construct deck, elective.
Okay, this applicant present. It doesn't look like.
The applicant is not present. We had recommended approval with one condition regarding further documentation on the skirting material for the deck, and the applicant had agreed to that condition. He was not going to be able to be here, but said he would provide whatever additional materials we needed.
Katie, can you tell us what materials might be approvable for that skirting?
So from the drawing, it looks like it is either kind of lap siding that would match what's on the house, or just plain horizontal boards that would be painted. And I think given the nature of the deck and the location, either of those would be appropriate.
And the garage has been demolished, is that correct?
Yes, if you look at the photos in the PowerPoint, the garage is already gone. We were fairly confident that that was not the historic garage based on Sanborn maps, and it clearly had some structural issues as well. But yes, it has already been removed.
Do we need 2 motions, one to demolish and one to approve?
Yes, we should do that.
I would make a motion for HPCA 19-00032, item 1, to demolish the garage with the findings as noted in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Wait a minute.
Aye. Another question, Linda? Sorry, moving too quick.
So it says that to demolish the garage is elective, but it's already gone?
Yeah.
We discovered it was already gone, I think, and didn't get it changed in the staff report. At the time that he applied, it was elective. And between when this was submitted and when we went out and took photos at the site, it came down.
So we
As far as I
review
know.
it as if it was still there.
That's unfortunate, but I think if you're
Yeah.
looking at the photos of the
But I just
garage,
think it needs
it's
to say
clearly,
required
I think
if
we
it's
would have
required.
approved it.
We can change
Okay.
that, and that's kind of been scrivener's error type thing.
Does that answer your question, Linda?
Yeah, I didn't know how that was elective. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I'll try to slow down this next time. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the demolition's approved. Yet.
I would make a motion for HPCA 19-00032, items 2 and 3, with the specific findings as noted in the staff report, and the condition for item 3 that clarification of the skirt material and design will be approved by staff prior to the certificate.
Second.
Linda, any comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 2 and 3 have been approved.
Before we move to the next item, I would let you know that I'm going to abstain from this or recuse myself.
Accused, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next.
HPCA 19-33 at 525 Northwest 42nd Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2.
You on the right one?
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. I'm not recusing myself from this
Okay.
item. Thank you.
Let's go, Kim.
Sorry, Paul.
Okay. Item 6.
Okay. Consideration and possible action on application by Brandon Swearingen for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition elective, 2, remove chimney elective, and 3, convert garage door opening to 2-car width single door with lighting elective.
Okay, applicant present. There he is, okay.
How are you all? I'm Brandon Swearingen, a homeowner at 525 Northwest 42nd.
Okay. All right. So, any comments on this?
Mr. Swearingen, I think the guidelines are pretty clear on removing the chimney. Guideline 3.7.2 says to maintain roof and roof elements, thereby preserving the historic building. And this is a prominent chimney. All the houses on the street have something similar. So I would tend to think that we would not want to approve that. And then
Okay,
also, go ahead.
It's being held by floor jacks currently, so it's either a removal to the base and do a whole new foundation, or tear it down and relocate it. But saving that chimney is not an option. I mean,
Are you
it's
saying
being
the lower
held up by
portion?
floor jacks
The
currently.
lower portion has been removed?
Well, there was parts of it that were failing whenever I bought the house, yes.
So in that situation, typically, we would ask you to go back and recreate a chimney,
To duplicate that chimney?
something similar, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then, I'm just kind of commenting here. And another item on the addition, guideline 4.3.4 says that new addition shall be no taller than the existing historic structure. And I don't know that I see a unique circumstance that would allow me to approve that.
In my, and I'm very aware of those guidelines. In my opinion, where the chimney is at and where the proposed addition would tie into the original ridge line, you would not notice, you have no knowledge if that ridge exists now or not. It's tying in directly to where that chimney would tie into the house. So that was kind of our angle on that, was the higher roof line to facilitate for the master suite upstairs would tie into that location exactly. So, and it would sit below the height of the current chimney that's in place there.
So staff, I guess, disagrees with that.
Well,
They said that this will be visible from the public right-of-way along the driveway.
If you lower the pitch slightly,
That's definitely a possibility, and I've been in discussion with my architect since talking to Katie on this. It would pretty much not make the addition feasible on a cost standpoint, because we would not be able to add a master suite to it from the size of the width of an 8-foot ceiling upstairs. So it would,
so lowering
it
it
would
to,
definitely affect property value, and it wouldn't let the market suggest what the property could be worth.
you think lowering the peak looks like,
12-12 now, so maybe like a 10-12.
what's that?
Yeah, it's 12-12 pitch now, so maybe even like a 10-12.
Well, I don't even have to go 10-12. You'll have to just have to lower the peak about, looks like
couple
feet.
foot and a half.
Correct.
That's what I know in the past we've approved, lower the pitch a little bit, but maybe, and we'd have to review it, but maybe add a dormer, something that you could still get some head height. You wouldn't, if you're looking at the front elevation, you wouldn't see that peak, in the middle of the roof. I don't know if that.
Possibly throwing a dormer on the east elevation, facing towards the driveway, because that would in turn, I definitely think that could be an option. Throwing a dormer on the east elevation there, that would give us plenty of room for master suite, whatever we choose to use the space for, but it would completely throw off the elevations and, the look of the roof line currently. It would,
I think it'd be very minimal, personally, as an architect.
well, the pitches are the same
It is the same as the existing house, correct?
Proposed, yes, sir.
Like it's wider than the house, so it's a little taller.
What's that?
It's just wider. I guess the roof itself is wider, so it's a little taller than the existing roof line.
How wide is that? It's a good sized master bedroom.
They're all 12-12 currently.
I think it could be done, personally. I'd like to see you study that. Also, the north elevation is really stark. I guess it doesn't face the street.
So we've also discussed that, the south elevation is all brick. The east and west do have 4-inch redwood on it. So whenever we proposed it, as you can tell there, it's all brick all the way up to the peak. That's why I had him draw it up that way. Since it's been submitted and talking with Katie, matching that frieze board and then the gabled end to be 4-inch lap siding would definitely be very achievable.
Or maybe add a ridge vent.
Add a window there in the laundry room, also to even out that back side, I think was also suggested.
So would you like to continue this to make these?
I mean, it definitely sounds that's the way it's going.
And there's a lot more than just that roof.
Yeah,
in
go ahead.
the report that really needs to be addressed. The chimney, the size.
That's correct, and that's what I was really trying to get achieved today. I understand that those are in the guidelines. I do also know that chimneys in the past have been approved. It's very common.
To remove?
Well, I back up. Not very common, but with the conditions of homes that we buy in the Mesta Park, the Heritage Hills area, sometimes they're just not salvageable.
Yeah, so usually it's the service chimney, but this is the only chimney. So I think that makes a difference.
If it would, I could definitely move the chimney possibly and maintain the top cap integrity of it and just possibly relocate it. That would be, I would be willing to talk on options as far as that goes. But ideally, the way fireplaces are made nowadays, chimneys are really not needed. So that would definitely be the best case scenario on our end. But keeping that chimney, the historic chimney, the way it sits now is virtually impossible. It would be a tear down and reconstruction of a chimney 10 foot in from the front door.
Okay.
Which would swing the sale price about $200,000 probably. I know that's.
Any more comments? I still think the north elevation is kind of stark. Besides the height and maybe the material, but there are very few windows. It would be nice if there were a little bit more.
Adding windows to the north elevation is.
It's very undifferentiated.
Okay.
So, you agree, Klaus? The north? Yeah, north elevation.
So dates for continuance are either May 1st or June 5th. We have a really tight turnaround for that May 1st meeting. We need everything by about next Tuesday. Or we can do the June 5th meeting.
No, next Tuesday.
Would nobody discussed the garage?
We haven't discussed
And I have a
things.
question before we continue that item, because it sounds like we're going to do that. You talked about relocating the chimney. Did the guidelines support that? Because I would hate for you to have it drawn up and, it's determined that they don't support that option.
The guidelines say that roof features like chimneys should be preserved. I think, I don't know, I think it just depends on how that's done. If it's a way that visually you're not going to be able to really tell that it's been relocated, but it works better from a structural standpoint, that's going to be different than we picked it up from over here and we put it over there. So.
But the removal of the chimney, I mean, I don't, like have touched on, it's one or the other. It's a removal or a tear down, and then a reconstruction of that chimney in the same spot, I would imagine.
But you're saying reconstruction, it would have to be located somewhere else. Is that what I understand?
I'm not saying that it can, that's the worst possible spot for that chimney to possibly be in the whole house.
Because you're wanting to add a suite upstairs?
Well, we have already converted the attic, and that is at the top of the staircase. And again, it's a 1,000-square-foot house, which is by far the smallest house on the street. That and the neighbor's house there, it's by far the smallest house, oddly small for the area, actually. So
I'm concerned you're going to have pushback
no,
by asking to move it somewhere else. I mean, so I just want to make you aware of that.
I really ask to remove it completely and use a non-vented fireplace.
I think it's the exterior appearance. I mean, I can see moving it on the ridge line, not to where you can't see it, but I mean, if it moved along the ridge line and but
I don't know, to me, I guess, when you start talking about moving it, things, I feel like, I mean, I kind of feel like you either find a way to keep it in its current location, maybe find a way to shore it up, you know, and make it work with the layout, or you remove it. I think it kind of gets in the weeds if you start trying to, you know, allow people to, or, you know, move it to the side of the house and it alters the appearance anyway, so then at that point, why not just get rid of it?
So I think your best bet is going to be to shore it up and rebuild what you need to and keep it in the same location.
Would it be possible to, it's being held by floor jack, so the foundation is compromised. You can't just shore it up and sell the home on the backside. Would it be possible to duplicate that chimney in foam so we wouldn't have to attach it all the way to the base, but on the roof line itself, it appears that the fireplace is in the same spot, because that is possible. But that would be very possible, to foam form and then stucco, or, you know, we can talk about materials, but foam that and duplicate it to the T, but then take out everything below it.
I think I know the answer to that one.
Well, I won't get into I don't know about the materials specifically, but I know we have seen people essentially reconstruct a chimney so that and be able to remove all or most of the internal structure of the chimney, because they no longer needed the function of it, but they kept it as a feature on the roof. We don't review what you do on the interior, so whether the chimney is held up with a functioning, you know, internal chimney or some other kind of structure or some kind of support structure that's integrated with the roof, we don't look at the interior of the building. I think it would come down to how it's done and what the appropriateness of the materials that you're able to use.
Maybe you could create a structure in still be an attic space above the 8-foot ceiling, right?
Yes, there is a little attic space, but with the weight of all that brick above the roof line, I wouldn't feel comfortable performing the work and standing by it for years, you know, in the future. I think our best bet is to foam that, so the weight is pretty much non-existent, but the look of it could be the exact same. I could even probably duplicate the brick on it with foam forms. I think that would be a better way than just trying to shore it up. You know, I wouldn't like to do that and put my name on it.
Okay. I think we'd be interested to see what that option is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then a few more questions. So the gabled end on the east side, to facilitate for the master suite, lower the roof line to the original roof, going straight back, and add in a few more windows to the north elevations.
That might, we have to see how that works out, but yeah, a few more windows would be good, I think, on the north. Yeah,
and then
lowering the
4-inch redwood on the top gable on the north elevation as well, instead of the all brick. Is that what is the hesitation? So when I come back again, we can get this thing approved. Is the brick the concern on that back gable, or is it just the windows?
Staff's concern was that it was a really large expanse of just uninterrupted brick. So I think all of those possible changes, adding the siding in the gable, the way the other gables have siding in them, would help to break that up.
And the siding would be painted.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes,
So,
probably need to do the next hearing, I guess, June.
June?
Probably, yes.
Good plan.
It's going to be quite the undertaking.
You're architecturally busy.
Do we want to talk about the garage door? I don't know if we need to continue that, or if that can be, a decision can be made today. So you're opening, it's 2 doors right now, and you want to do a single door?
Well, it's one single door and then
I
an entry
see.
door there.
Okay.
We would just make it a double door, yes, ma'am.
And then will you have a
16
pedestrian
by-
door on the side or the back?
Yeah, so we plan to have an entrance on the west elevation there.
Okay. Any windows proposed other than that?
We need to see that plan.
I don't see drawings for that, so
Yeah.
can we just continue the whole thing?
Might as well.
Do some drawings in the garage.
For
Make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00033 to the May 1st meeting.
June 5th.
Second. Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, being continued. Thank you.
I'm sorry, one more question. Could I add to that, as I'm looking at the picture now, the driveway's in terrible shape? Is there a way to?
Yep, we can add an item for that.
Perfect. All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay,
Anything
Commissioner
else?
Brown, I need to recuse myself for the next
Yes,
item.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Usually if we get to about this time, we take a 5-minute break. Do we want to?
Probably a good idea. We'll come back at in 5 minutes, about 4:25.
I'm next. Uh-huh. What?
She's out there.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started on D7.
HPCA 19-00037 at 600 Northwest 16th, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Jeremy Gardner, Gardner Architects, for David Burnett for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct house with attached garage, elective; 2, install driveway and curb cut, elective; 3, remove portions of existing fence wall, retaining wall, and sidewalk for driveway, elective; 4, install sidewalks, concrete, and permeable pavers in various locations, elective; 5, demolish pool cabana and landscape elements, elective; and 6, repair brick steps, retaining and fence wall, and walk, elective. The Commission saw an informational presentation, advisory presentation on this property several months ago, and this is the first time that the actual application is in front of the Commission.
And we have a model to pass down and look at.
It's heavy. Jeremy Gardner, Gardner Architects, 323 Northwest 9th Street.
Okay. There you go, Klaus. All right, any questions on this? Would you like to say anything, Jeremy?
Any questions?
Questions?
No, I think kind of in the same line as where we left it. We went back and kind of studied some of the topography just to kind of shore up our assumptions that we made early on. And so I think the drawings that we've presented as well as the model just kind of show some of the unique circumstance that we're kind of dealing with as it relates to the grade of 16th as it slopes from Dewey up to Lee. And but anyway, so we just wanted to kind of continue the conversation if you guys had any specific questions beyond what we talked about last time. I think the unique circumstances in particular to this that we talked about early on, too, was the garage and then also some of the massing. The east-west dimension was what we discussed. So
I remember you presented kind of a conceptual design last year, sometime, I can't remember exactly when, maybe it's listed in here. What kind of changes in the design occurred since then, or is it mostly materials?
Mostly just kind of finessing kind of where the finished floors are in relation to the topography. And so we went and had a survey done that kind of really nails down those finished floors. And so beyond those kind of the minutia of that, the intent is still kind of intact from that original presentation.
Okay, is there anybody that would like to speak on this?
Randy Ice with Heritage Hills Design Review Committee. We concur with staff recommendations in terms of the approvals and the continuances. We prepared a list of things we were concerned with and have provided that to the commission. We'll provide it to the applicant as well. I just basically itemized all the things that the committee mentioned in our review committee, and of course we're willing to meet with the applicant as well on a new construction project like this, and we appreciate the applicant using an architect.
Okay, thank you. We have one letter from the Harrises. Or anybody here?
Yes, there was a letter of protest from the property owner directly to the west. They said they were not going to be able to be here at the meeting, but they wanted to make sure that the commission had those comments from them. And that was emailed out to the commission as soon as staff had received it, and then you've got a copy at each of your seats. And we did also share that with the applicant, just to confirm.
Is there Paula, a slide of that corner right now from that kind of the same angle as the rendering? Just kind of curious.
Is there what?
Kind of slide of that corner. Yeah, okay, it's, all right.
So those are all looking north?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There we go.
To me, the window treatments, I mean, the windows do make that house seem out of place in the historic district. Did you consider divided light windows more in keeping with the historic?
In terms of the character of the windows themselves or the proportions of the windows?
In the doors?
I think we were trying to, the architecture's trying to respect the historic nature of the neighborhood, obviously, but at the same time trying to not necessarily replicate. And so we weren't trying to replicate divided light unnecessarily. So I think that was how we approached the design of the actual windows with that intent.
Infill houses are always kind of difficult.
Also, I kind of agree with your sentiment that you want to kind of address the kind of adjacent character of the houses, the massing, in this case, the way the porch operates, but you don't want it to necessarily exactly approximate, all the other houses in the neighborhood necessarily. I think one good way of doing that is with windows, maybe even having casement windows, or in this case, looks like maybe a double hung window, something that, maybe approximates the proportions of the neighboring houses, but doesn't, replicate the lights, for example. I mean, even when you do a divided light now, generally it's not a true divided light anyways, it's kind of a simulated divided light, so you're kind of replicating something anyways. So I don't personally have as big an issue with the kind of window selection.
Just a note, generally in the area, we do not permit one double-sized garage door. We ask for 2 single garage doors. Driveways are limited to 10-foot width. This is a much larger width driveway. There are just a number of things that don't fall in compliance with the actual code, and I'd encourage the development to follow the code exactly.
Katie, could you clarify on that a little bit? Because I know in some neighborhoods, in some HP neighborhoods, you almost have like their own specific guidelines that might require, 2 separate garage doors. In some neighborhoods, it's not as strict.
Sure. Well, the garage door guidelines that are neighborhood by neighborhood deal with materials. As far as the design of garage doors, the guidelines say that 2 single car width garage doors are preferred, that maintains kind of the historic massing and proportion of garages. You don't get what can start to feel kind of commercial when you have a double width garage door. We have approved the 2 car width garage doors. Typically we do that when it is a garage that is back behind the house, a detached garage at the rear of the lot. The visibility of those doors is minimized by the location and that it's tucked back behind the house. As far as the width of the driveway, staff can administratively approve widening a historic driveway, which often were 7.5, 8 feet wide, up to 10 feet. That said, we have lots of garages that are accessed off a side street where you have a much shorter driveway, and often those will have a driveway that matches the width of 2 garage doors. So that's not something that is unusual for a side street accessed garage, having it be a straight driveway that's the appropriate width rather than kind of fanning out awkwardly over a very short distance.
I think the other thing that we were trying to accomplish is by minimizing the appearance of the garage door to the east elevation of the house, and by kind of simplifying all of those pieces that make up that garage was the design intent.
You kind of have a unique condition, too, because it is so elevated, the whole site. I don't know, I mean, if you know, even if you're required to do like a detached garage, I don't know how that driveway would look. I mean, it would be a pretty steep driveway, I'm assuming. It'd be kind of an awkward condition, maybe.
It would be probably a similar condition, but you would have a carriage house on top of it, because if you push it to the back, which is like what's directly to the east. But given the unique character of that fence that's back on, and that arched kind of entry to that back lot creates its own unique challenges, because by the time you, if you kind of spin around, yeah, to that right there. So if you were to put the garage on that actual lot line, you would have to completely reconfigure that whole scenario. And then if you moved it further to the north, you would kind of get into issues with it and the pool and all those other things, those existing features that we're maintaining.
Well, the thing that I'm having trouble evaluating here is the arguments, would be the arguments from the people next door as well as the design review committee from the neighborhood about the spacing. The Harrises say that the property is to consist of a large 2-story structure 5 feet off the property line, and they say that is counter to the uniform spaces for the properties with plots our size, and it would significantly alter the character of their property. And then the Neighborhood Design Committee also says it does not maintain the typical house spacing on that block, and I'm having a hard time evaluating that. Can you speak to that, Mr. Gardner?
Site plan shows setback of 8 foot 2 inches on the west side. So there's that.
Yeah, the site plans show 8 feet 2 inches off the property line. I know for most of the houses going down the block from this, they will have the more typical configuration where there's a detached garage in the back. So you have, at least on one side of the house, you have a wider space where there's a driveway. So you have kind of a pattern of offset houses to one side, driveway on the other side.
Looks like the front wall of the house aligns with the building line. So you get that line of covered porches.
Yeah, I think they're concerned about the side offset. So Mr. Harris's statement that it's 5 feet off the property line is not
correct.
accurate? Is that?
Nope.
If you look at page 27 in your packet, it's drawing A301 from the applicant. That does show comparison site plans for the next 2 properties down the block that kind of shows the spacing of where the houses are located, the space in between, driveway in between. I think in the staff report we also had some numbers on the width, the overall width of this house compared to the width of other structures on the block.
It does appear to be wider than others.
So the reason that the garage is on the side street under the ground is because you didn't want to put a garage beside it, behind it?
Say that again?
The reason that the garage is underneath the ground on the side street so that you could have more house on the front? I mean, you didn't want to have a drive on the side of the house like the others, or?
Yeah, but just because of again, that grade kind of stays the same, so all along, the backyard grade of the house is pretty consistent along Dewey. And so this was just to take advantage of that idea that the finished floor is about 11 feet or so above Dewey. And that being the case, it helps resolve all of the kind of the vehicular access into the site. So if we move that, again, if we moved it further south, you would have to reconfigure that historic retaining wall that's there on the south end of the property.
I think Linda's partially asking, why don't you have a driveway on the west side like all the other houses down this block?
On the west side of the house?
Well, I mean, that's the way that everybody else accesses their garage on those streets, is
which naturally
there's a
produces more
driveway,
space.
and that addresses the spacing that the neighbor's complaining about, I think, in the neighborhood association. And it's the width of that house on the lot as compared to the other houses, and maybe it is because they have driveways. You could have put a drive on that side.
On the west side.
With a slope, yeah.
Yeah, I think we could.
Come to the microphone and state your name too, please.
Yeah, while you're signing in, I will say we have numerous people on the commission that were not on the commission the last time you were here.
Okay.
So you might want to back up and talk about the conditions with the garage that were presented before.
And this is David Burnett, the owner of the property, and I was here last time. I think that's getting close to being about a year ago whenever we did the design, and we talked about that specific element. And whenever we came here initially for the lot split, one of those pieces that was a big part of the discussion was that the carriage house for the property to the south of us, that actually was a part of or encroached into what was originally the drawn boundaries for this particular lot. So it actually encroached into there a full, I think, 25 feet that it went over to the boundary. So the way that the pool is designed, if we were to do the driveway off the west side and coming in, there was really no way. It was very, very, very tight to be able to have that garage back there and then to swing around with the pool, because the carriage house for the property to the south of it was actually, so we had to cut, we had a lot split a good portion of our back piece, a jaunt there, that would be right where the carriage house would have sat if that carriage house from the south did not encroach into there. That was kind of my...
Yeah, because it's...
That's right, but the way that the 75 by 180 or whatever the particular lots are naturally drawn with all of the different neighbors going to the west, that actual building was a part of this, as the naturally lot lines would have been drawn as you make your way west. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's, the issue was not the driveway, but it was if you put the garage back there, the maneuvering in and out of that garage would prove to be challenging because of that lot line for the property to the south actually makes a little dog leg over and makes that north-south dimension of that lot shorter on the west side of the property.
So there's not enough depth on the west side to do all that.
Right,
in that garage.
correct.
And I can see, looking at the plan that takes a chunk out of the backyard, that if you look next door, the garages are set way back about where that existing building is to remain. So I can see that you lack depth on the west side.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason why a lot of these houses have that kind of configuration where they have the garage facing the side street instead of having the drive coming from the front for a lot of corner houses.
That's fairly common.
Because you do have, and in this case, the setback is kind of dictated by HP, but generally you have a wider side yard setback. So you're dealing, the kind of center lot houses just have like a typical 5-yard setback maybe, but then their front yard setback. But a corner house has kind of a front yard setback and a larger side yard setback, which kind of restricts the buildable area a little bit.
I don't know if this lot is restricted on the...
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is or not.
But it does
Something
look,
goes up.
the depth looks like it's restricted. And it's not unusual to have take advantage of the slope and have a garage opening from the side street. This may be unusual, but personally, I've seen it.
Yeah, we see corner properties with garages accessed from the side street throughout our districts. We don't see attached garages frequently, but that's where I think they've tried to address the existing, curved gate entrance that still exists, the existing carriage house at the property to the south, the existing pool that they intend to keep. So I think all of those things kind of combine to lead toward the garage as it's proposed.
Could you pass that model back? Is the floor level about the same as the one to the west? The height about the same as the one to the...
It's probably a couple feet difference.
A couple of feet higher.
Yeah.
Couple of...
Don't get your scale out, Alan.
Is it a couple of feet higher than the one to the west?
Yeah, no, we're lower, a couple
You're
feet
lower.
lower.
That's my question.
Yeah,
Because you're a couple feet
property
lower.
to the,
Okay. All right.
to the west, a couple feet higher.
Those height comparisons are also on the page that had the site plan, page 27 of 58, that
this
shows
scale?
the block slopes up to the west.
Anybody else want to see the model again? I think it helps with the massing of it more than the rendering, actually.
I mean, it seems from the kind of elevation on A301 that the kind of spacing between houses is really pretty consistent, regardless of driveway or not.
Yep.
On the,
Yep. Like I said, infills are kind of difficult. You don't want it to try to mimic exactly, but you want it to blend and be contemporary and traditional at the same time. Okay. So you're on your recommendation, continuing for can you kind of summarize what you're
Yeah, so, and we talked that, a continuance is not necessarily a do not approve, but a open door for discussion between the applicant and the commission. I think some of the things that staff noted have already been talked about. The width of the house that would be, with the garage included, would be the widest house on the block. And just ensuring that that spacing between the next house to the side is appropriate. Some elements of the design, and we talked about this a little bit, seem to perhaps emphasize the width of the house, whereas on some of our other structures, those elements add maybe a different sense to the massing. I think that the proportions and the spacing of both the porch columns and the individual windows across the front kind of emphasize the width of what is already a pretty wide structure. Sometimes we see, when you look at other structures on the block, you see often pairs of windows instead of single windows, and you see much more substantial porch columns that create kind of an outdoor room on the front porch. Obviously, they are going for a more modern aesthetic, and we're not trying to replicate other historic structures. But those were some things that stood out to staff as maybe less compatible. And then I think the neighborhood also brought up the west elevation has very few windows on it. We usually press new construction for as many windows as we can get, although I know they are trying to be sensitive to the fact that there's a neighbor right there, and they're looking into their property.
Yep.
on the west side, and this is David again for the owner, and this speaks somewhat to the elements of the letter that the Harris family sent you all. Whenever we went before the lot split initially, we didn't have a chance to meet Nathan and his wife, and they sent the protest letter. So I just wanted to make sure that it was very clear to you all that this time it was done completely differently. And I actually sat on the back porch of Nathan's house, and this is coming back to the window point. We went through several iterations of how to do the back and the side, and there was potentially this second-story porch that we immediately said, that's looking right over into your pool. Your pool's along this way. So he and I, Nathan Harris, and I went through several iterations to figure out how to reduce any sort of invasion of his privacy over there. Hence, the windows on the west side aren't as numerous as they typically are in construction. But I say all that to say, and it may not be relevant here, but I just wanted it to be noted that we tried very hard throughout the process with the Harris family to make sure that we were sensitive to his situation, and the windows were a reflection of that. And obviously, at the end of the day, you just probably don't want construction next to your house whenever you've got a nice open lot there. So I don't fault him for that, but I just want to make sure that you all are aware that we've tried very diligently throughout the process to work with him on that.
Now for an architectural review. I kind of agree that just the rhythm of the single windows seems to be kind of stark in a way. I think of groupings of windows that would add more interest. In the west elevation, I think you could do more with. Maybe you went too far, eliminating windows, because it's very.
My wife loves
There's
windows.
Well,
bedrooms.
we all have windows.
There's bedrooms.
Right, and our neighbors' windows. So it's...
There's bedrooms up there that could use a window on the west.
I was going to say, I appreciate that you're reaching out to the neighbors and trying to, work with them as best as possible. This is probably the one case where I would agree, that that's an urban condition. People are going to have windows facing each other somewhat.
One thing that I didn't mention that we've talked about, and I want to make sure the commission is aware of and can comment on, is that the proposed material is brick with a, what did we call it, a slurry with a coating applied over the brick. We wouldn't typically approve that to be done to a historic brick structure. The guidelines don't really address something like that for new construction, but it does talk generally about materials being compatible with surrounding materials on the block and in the district. So just wanted to make sure you all knew what that material was.
And one more architectural comment. Front porch, does it really have to be full width? I mean, it could be set in, make it kind of less emphasize the width, which everybody seems to be commenting on.
Sure, but I guess there's a lot of life I used to live across the street, and so we spent.
So this house?
Yeah,
really?
Directly across the street. So I think that a lot of life happens. They're a young family, and they will probably spend a lot of time, on the front porch as well. So it was kind of a natural extension of what's happening inside and outside. But I know that's
just a thought on that.
And about the slurry, and then also about the front porch. So I think whenever we initially came here for the design consultation, I think that we had that as stucco, and then there was some feedback that maybe that wasn't the way to go, and maybe it was all brick. So then we looked at, okay, but what if we did a white painted brick? And then we were told, well, we don't really like to do the white painted bricks. So then it was a slurry. So for us, it's really just we want to figure out something that works. We just kind of need to know where that is to make sure that we can mollify.
I don't think I've ever seen that finish. Slurry, is it?
I haven't either. I'm a little nervous about it.
I saw a house up in the north of Nichols Hills Plaza that I think might be similar to that. Is it kind of thick coating? Is it not? Okay.
It's not thick. I think you still have a mottled texture. It's not as stark as the stucco, but I mean, there are samples around here.
Yeah, we did one at 6th Street,
Slurry?
That was I mean, I think the spec would be similar. So you still have the brick texture kind of underneath. It's almost like a lime wash, but, I mean, it's a little bit thicker than that. You know, you have a little bit of, you can tell it's brick, you know, but it has a very kind of
It might be what I saw. Thicker than paint.
There's a new house over right by the Phil Brick that has a very similar white slurry.
Next to which?
The Phil Brick in Tulsa. Anyway.
And as
I'll
far
go
as
over there
the,
and check it out.
and as far as the front porch goes, just from our own personal perspective, we live in North Edmond where nobody has a front porch. Nobody does anything on their front porches. It's all backyard, 6-foot-high privacy fences. So for us, with 4 kids, that was one of the biggest elements of transitioning from a backyard-type suburb to a front yard where we can actually do a little bit of life and evening activities, and we play a lot of, card games and everything else. So for us, it was how big can we push that without obviously upsetting the architectural
Just a note from the neighborhood. The neighborhood wants the biggest porch possible.
Okay.
All right, in fact, we actually wanted the width of the house, we think it's too small, okay? Because all the other houses on the block have full porches. We don't want a smaller porch like Edmond.
I'm not
okay?
saying that. I was just looking at some of the elevations of the houses. The next door has full width. The one next to it has a little bit narrower. Maybe it's just the roof line.
And maybe the roof line can be adjusted, that's fine, but we really do want the house oriented towards the porch.
Oh,
The
sure.
whole neighborhood is oriented towards the porch and the street, so we feel it builds community in the neighborhood.
Please don't take my comment
Okay.
wrong. I was not arguing against that, but maybe that accentuates the width is what I was just saying. In our air conditioning, where heating just went off, so. It's 5 o'clock. Any more comments?
No, I think, the porch, it kind of makes sense to stop it where it does, in my opinion, because the garage is kind of secondary or that kind of 2-story. And I think it kind of helps set that back a little bit or set that apart
And
from the main house.
That main massing of the house is really trying to pull from the adjacent house to the west. So the porch and the width of the main body is similar, and then the balance of the house is really kind of holding that historic setback off of Dewey. So it's picking up the house on the north.
Except for the windows, I'd like I said, maybe even changing the single to do something else with that. I kind of like most of the rest of it, but you guys?
I agree. I think the garage, I understand the unique circumstances there to that, justify a attached garage in this case. I do think the west elevation, like you're mentioning, could use another window or two. So, I'd feel good about reviewing, especially with windows, it'd be nice to see that again. I don't know if...
So we want to continue this?
I'd kind of like to understand the finish better, too. See something about the slurry finish.
Is it, this is just my own naivete, so I was just going to ask, because I don't have any idea how this process works, but is it possible to vote on this, but with the carve-out or the exception of, depending on further approval of addition of windows or some element of that, or is it kind of an all or nothing? Because I don't know how any of this works, so just asking.
Staff's recommended two things.
So functionally, when this is approved, you're going to get a certificate of appropriateness that you then take and go get a building permit with. So the drawings that we approve need to match what you're going to turn in to get a building permit. So it wouldn't really work for us to approve pieces and parts of a design when we're still going to have you come back and potentially change an elevation, potentially change other details. So I think you can take some pretty positive feedback on the overall design with some specific instruction to come back with changes.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking at you.
Are we doing
Yeah,
anything? Are we doing anything with item 1, as far as demolishing the pool cabana, landscape elements? Do we need to address those, or anything that we need to?
Yeah, staff separated
out there?
it into two, as, the demolition and...
That is something I was supposed to get started on, if it was approved.
Any comments on
There's no reason to demo the pool today. We can just table the whole thing and come back and...
What's that?
I said we can just do the continuance on the whole thing, so
Whole
it's...
thing.
So it doesn't... Yeah.
How long will it take you? You want it till June or till May?
Well, I think we can have it by May, but I think we have a scheduling conflict. If you trust us, can you trust us?
So we really need any new documentation that
Next
you're going to turn
Tuesday?
in by Tuesday. And we've got, I mean, with this meeting being on the 3rd and the next on the 1st, this is a really short month for us. So Angela and I are going to be very mean about getting new material. So if you think there's some hesitation there, it might be easier to go for June 5th, but that's your call.
Let's go ahead and do it for then, and then if we feel like we can't make it, can we?
Nope.
So we have to continue it to a specific date. You'd
You
have
can't
one
do
more
the
continuance
1st
left
and the
after
5th?
that. I don't think they'll let us, he said, can we continue it to the 1st and the 5th simultaneously?
Okay, we'll just do June.
Okay.
We'll do June.
Okay. Need more time and everything.
What's the date? Exactly June what? June 5th. All right, so I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00037 to the June 5th hearing.
Second. Okay, been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, been
Thank you.
continued. Thank you.
HPCA 19-38 at 3015 North Robinson Avenue. Sorry, I scribbled all over my own agenda. Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Ken Fitzsimmons, Task Design, for Amy Johnson and Sam Ladwig for a certificate of appropriateness to, 1, replace concrete stair and landing at side door with new stair, landing, patio, and guardrail at side door elective.
Nice model.
2, install railing at front porch elective. 3, install gravel path with steel edging in rear yard elective. 4, construct raised walkway deck in rear yard elective. And 5, construct accessory building with balcony in rear yard elective.
Okay.
Hi, Ken Fitzsimmons, 1228 Northwest 36th Street, and Amy Johnson, one of the owners, is here.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. Staff's recommending a mixture and a continuance on the primary project. Any comments? Or questions? Oh, that's right, we have 2 people. Welcome back. Okay.
I think, the railing and all the work, the existing house seems pretty straightforward. I don't really have any comments there. I did, I love seeing accessory structures. I think this makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure on the height. It just feels,
Yeah, and on that note, the main reason for that is that Amy and Sam really would like to have a loft. This is kind of a way to create a getaway in their backyard, if you will. And the thought process was you have these 2 really large neighbors on either side, and we were trying to site it so that we weren't looking directly into their buildings, and at the same time trying to design something we didn't have windows facing their building as well. And so we tried to match the roof. We matched the roof pitch of the garage back there and followed that profile and the overall height with the building set down. It slopes towards the back with the building set down on a lower elevation than the front. It is lower in height than the existing house. And from the street, I think there's a rendering in your package there that shows the existing street view, and then it shows a SketchUp or 3D model version of what it looks like, of how that profile would basically go away. You would not see this studio, we do not think, from the street unless you're really looking for it. So that was kind of our main strategy, is try to make it tucked away as far back and make it just go away from the street. And that was the reason for the shed roof, is to accommodate a loft in there, but keep it as a smaller appearance than, say, if we did a two-story.
I like this strategy of not trying to expand the house with a very large addition.
Right,
It's a
and that
small
was,
house.
and thank you for bringing that up. That was actually, in the beginning, we did discuss that, but we realized that that would probably not work as successfully as doing something just completely separate. and
Double the
push it
size
to the
of the
back.
house.
Yeah.
It is kind of mid, the height, as we know on accessory buildings we talk about, are not specified normally, but they're thought to be smaller structures, I guess, than this. The thing that kind of mitigates this is the two-story house, apartment buildings, or whatever that is, right next to it.
Right, yeah,
Apartments.
there's apartments on either side, so I don't know the number of units, but the one on the north is really pretty good size. You can see the
Yeah.
one on the south there is smaller in size, but it still has probably at least four.
Yeah, right there. I mean,
And that's the large one on the other side, so it's a big,
I don't think you're going to be overpowering that.
no,
so.
no. Yeah, there's a great view showing what we're,
So, yeah, it looks like there's a tree on one side, and I'm looking at image, what is it, on page 9 of 27 of the staff report, but
A tree kind of in the neighbor's yard that's just a little bit ahead of the garage, and then there are two trees.
But need you to step to the microphone so you can be
One tree in the
recorded.
backyard that is ours, so the foliage coverage is pretty significant that surrounds both the garage and where this ancillary building would be.
right, and on that note, that was actually part of the design process, why we also situated behind the garage, also to make it go away, but we really wanted to keep that tree right there. Yeah, wanted to keep that.
Katie, you mentioned in the staff report something about, I guess, materials, not, or what were you referring to in the,
Let me look. I think we had, on the accessory building in particular, windows and doors were not an aluminum-clad wood or a wood, but a metal product, which we don't typically see especially in like new construction and additions, but for something with a more contemporary design may not be inappropriate. Again, on accessory structures, the guidelines specific to materials are a little bit more open, that materials used at accessory buildings should reflect the use and function of the accessory building and not necessarily that of the primary building. Materials used at exterior facades of accessory buildings were often different, simpler, and less costly than materials used for the main building.
So you think this is an accessory building more so than it's an addition?
Because it's freestanding, we would consider it an accessory building. It's not attached to the historic structure. So that's what I would call it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Well, I think this is it's a good instance where, you know, the reason we consider everything individually, because it would be very difficult to do this in almost every historic backyard in every district, except for, I think that in this case, I think it fits. And it's just an unusual situation where you have the higher buildings and the design. So I think this is just one of those instances where, you know, 10 people could propose it, and 10 different, 9 properties, it would be not acceptable. So that's my opinion. I've looked at it carefully. I think it's...
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. Those two apartment buildings are, you know, towering.
It's not too high.
Right. I mean,
And it's not taller than the
backyard,
house
you can't
either,
see it.
so.
So, anyway, I think if I was a neighbor, it would not be a problem. But anyway, I think it's just one of those cases where it really proves that, every case has to be looked at individually.
Oh, sure, that makes sense. I guess I wasn't as aware about the height of the neighboring structures, but it, kind of fits the scale, I would suppose.
Yeah, there's a image that, one of the 3D images might show a little bit more of that if you look at page 6.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So the materials and the height and the footprint. Larger than a garage or smaller than a new addition. There's no area limit on accessory buildings, per se?
Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, there's code requirements for lot coverage and that
Right.
sort of thing. But
All right. Are you within the lot coverage?
I think we are, yes. I think it's, I can't remember what it works out to, but
yeah, usually if you have a front yard, you're
Yeah.
pretty much within the
Yeah,
lot coverage.
Yeah, usually hard to. Hello. Just in time for the last one. So in the windows, the question about the materials, they're aluminum,
correct.
not a clad wood, just aluminum,
Right.
coated.
Right. The idea, again, because it is an accessory building, we talked with Katie about this, it's, I guess our philosophy on this was, and I don't know if that's shared by everybody up here, but we wanted to, because it was new, we didn't want to try to, necessarily
Mimic.
replicate, and we thought that being tucked away, hidden like that we thought maybe this would be more latitude for something more contemporary.
I think a lot of time we worry about, maybe inferior materials being used, and I think this would probably be a more durable window anyways, long-term, so.
Right, and that's also the feeling about the siding. We're using a composite material versus real wood because I live in a 100-something-year-old house, and it's just constant maintenance nightmare, but I love the house, but
Right.
for a new house, it's really tough.
So I'm sorry, I stepped in late. The accessory building, I have a little bit of concern about the height and the roof form. It seems really tall and quite different. I understand that it is kind of hidden a little bit by some multifamily at the back of the lot, but I think I'd like to see something less dramatic, if that's possible.
Yeah, the idea was we were matching and aligning with the existing garage roof, and that was the idea. Is there was the context there of aligning with that slope and extension of that. And we did keep the height of it by dropping the floor of this accessory building would be couple of 3 feet lower than the house. So by doing that, we're able to keep the ridge line of the new structure at or lower than the existing house.
You were looking at we didn't think it was, it's almost overwhelmed by these in some ways that we were talking about, so. If you look at the photographs, look at that. I mean, it's hard to get, anyhow. I kind of like it. I wouldn't, like Joe said, any other lot probably would not be appropriate, but because of the,
Yes.
so you're not going to see it from the street. Yeah.
I know It's often so hard to tell in drawings,
Yeah.
really what it's going to be.
I don't know if it conveys it exactly, but there's a view, if you don't mind turning to page 2, it shows a view of the existing street view, and then we tried our best to convey what that would look like with the new structure in the background. There's a lot of trees there that certainly plan on keeping whatever's on their property. And the neighbor has a fence that goes in front of their multifamily unit. So that was the idea, is to hide it as much as possible. So we understood that we were asking for something that was beyond what was probably typically proposed in HP, but we're hoping that all of these things that help screen would give us more latitude. And like you said, it's just the best way to describe it. It really is just a funky lot. It's when you stand back there, it's not like any other typical lot, because most lots you're behind the house, and you also are looking into other open backyards. When you're standing in the backyard here, you're looking at a really large gray building that you can see there on one side, and then you have the fourplex on the other side. So it's just, it was an attempt to try to create a outdoor court space, if nothing else, to try to anchor that side of the yard and be able to look towards that tree.
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00038. Items 1 and 2 with the specific findings as noted in staff report, and the unique circumstance listed in the staff report. And item 3 with the specific finding that the structures surrounding the lot create a visual screen to the backyard.
You talking about 3 or?
So it's 3, 4, and 5 for the gravel path, raised walkway, and accessory building.
I'm sorry, I always get confused with where the items are listed. So yeah, I guess, right. So the items, item 1 to replace concrete stair and landing at side door with the specific findings as listed. And item 2, install railing at front porch with unique circumstance as listed in the staff report. Then items 3 and 4 and 6.
5.
It's a typo. It's 5 on the agenda, but I know what you mean. We'll fix it.
Yeah, refer to the first page. Okay. Specific findings?
Yeah, that the backyard is screened by several story multifamily buildings adjacent to this site, kind of negating the negative impact, visual impact of the high roof.
Anything else? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Been approved.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see it.
Okay, we have 2 items under other business. One is a recommendation to Board of Adjustment on a request for a special exception to use a property in a historic preservation district to allow for multifamily residential development.
This is 7C.
This is what Floyd has been hanging out for all afternoon. So this is a property at, I'm not seeing my staff report actually, but you all should have a staff report on this.
Got it right here.
It is a, thank you, property at
1000
that one.
Northwest
Okay, yep.
22nd.
1000 Northwest 22nd. There historically was a multifamily structure on this site. It is no longer standing. There is still a garage with apartments above on the site. Right now so this property is zoned HP, which allows for single-family residential use only. But multifamily is a special exception. That's a process where they go to the Board of Adjustment and are granted a special exception to do multifamily This is only for the use, to allow that use. They would come back to the Historic Preservation Commission for a CA for the new construction itself. So you have a site plan and some kind of schematic floor plans in your staff report, but they will be back with design details once the special exception is approved.
To allow multifamily?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, looks like, seems appropriate.
Essentially, we're just maintaining the use, correct? I mean, or what was a multifamily.
Yeah, apparently.
Multifamily, yeah.
Historically.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Saying we're essentially just continuing the
Right.
historical use, so, yeah.
Is there a motion?
I'll recommend approval to the Board of Adjustment for the special exception request regarding BOA 14588 and forward the comments that are listed under the staff recommendation.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Somebody, George? Ann, okay. All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Passed.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks
have
for
a good
sticking
evening.
around.
Okay, one more. We, every year, we apply for and typically are granted some funding from the State Historic Preservation Office because we are a certified local government. This is funding that we use to hire consultants to carry out surveys, do National Register nominations. We use this funding to put on different workshops for the commission or for the public. This is the funding that we use to pay for people to attend conferences and that sort of thing. So we have to submit an application. It'll go, you all have to authorize the chair to sign the application, and then it'll go to the mayor and city council for their authorization, and then on to the State Historic Preservation Office. And I'm refreshing my memory on what our projects are. It's essentially to prepare a National Register nomination for hopefully the Britton Road commercial corridor, if we get positive results back on a survey that is currently underway, or another district to be determined in consultation with SHPO, funding for travel and training that we do every year. I think we included some funding to continue to have an intern position, that sort of thing. So,
The preservation plan. See that on there?
Yep. Work associated with implementing the preservation plan, which, depending on what happens with First Christian Church, hopefully we'll finish up the preservation plan somewhere in there with all of that work.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to move that we recommend the Certified Local Government Subgrant application to City Council for approval and authorize the Historic Preservation Chair to sign the application on behalf of the Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Who was it this time? Oh, and again. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's been recommended. On to communications reports, minister approvals, bunch of them.
Yeah, I will explain the one that looks like it has every single address in all of Shepherd. That is a city project to replace a water line, so it is touching or potentially touching the north side of just about every street.
Wow.
It's sidewalk replacement and driveway approach replacement and a fence along the west side of the district. So everyone pat Paula on the back for assembling all those addresses. And that is all I have.
Okay, withdrawals, administrative closures. What's administrative closure?
Administrative closures is when someone has submitted an application that is incomplete and it never becomes complete.
Expires?
After 90 days, we can close them.
Okay.
If they are not submitting documentation.
I remember that. Okay, City Council, none. Board Adjustment, Planning Commission, Ad Hoc Committee, none. Municipal Councilor? Nothing. Next meeting date, the next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is May 1st, 2019 at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chamber. New applications for this meeting were received April 2nd, 2019. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, April 9th, 2019. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, June 12th, 2019, from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main, Suite 900. Any items from commissioners? Any more citizens? Doesn't look like it. So there being no further business, we're adjourned.
Thank you, Pam. I assumed since it was after 5 that the store would be locked. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Where are they? You know, when it was televised, it was easy. There was always something, back there crackling and to give them a heads up. But now, if I forget they're back there,